They were meant to entertain us, teach us, comfort us. But some kids' shows didn't just cross the line, they erased it completely. From dead-eyed puppets and faceless dolls, to nightmare fuel hidden in bright colors and nursery rhymes. These are the shows that actually aired on TV and left a lasting scar on the kids who watched them. Most of them were forgotten over time, but some, they were buried on purpose. Once upon a time, those words usually mean comfort, safety, fairy tales with happy endings, but not here. In 1987, legendary puppeteer Jim Henson, best known for The Muppets and Sesame Street, took a sharp and haunting detour into the shadows with a series called The Storyteller. Set in a dim, medieval stone room lit only by firelight, the series begins the same way every time. An old man with glassy eyes and a quiet voice sits down beside his talking dog. He stares into the flames, and then he begins to speak. When people told themselves their past with stories, explained their present with stories, foretold the future with stories. But these weren't the fairy tales we grew up with. They weren't softened, they weren't censored. They were brutal, ancient, and deeply unsettling. Each episode explored obscure European folk tales, the ones too dark for Disney. Stories filled with witches, devils, shapeshifters, curses, and betrayal. Many ended in suffering or silence. One tale follows a soldier who cheats death by trapping it in a sack. At first, the world celebrates. No one is dying. But soon, the natural order unravels. Pain becomes endless. Time begins to rot. Death itself becomes a prisoner, and the world starts to suffocate. Another features a man who burns his own shadow to win favor with a cursed king, only to lose his soul in the process. The production was visually stunning. Elaborate sets, eerie music, and hyper-detailed puppets crafted by the Jim Henson Creature Shop. But somehow, the more realistic it looked, the more unreal it felt. Like you were watching someone else's memory, or a dream you forgot you had as a child. It aired on TV, technically for families, but many kids who saw it back then remember it not as entertainment, but as something closer to a spell. Something they weren't supposed to see, but did anyway. And maybe that's the most powerful part. The storyteller didn't try to protect you from the darkness. It led you straight into it, hand in hand, and whispered, "This is the truth behind the fairy tale. Not every ending is happy." It ran for just 9 episodes, but that was enough. Enough to leave a scar on the kids who watched it. Enough to earn its place among the most disturbing forgotten kids shows ever made. And if you close your eyes right now, you can still hear the fire crackling, and the voice beginning once more. Once upon a time.
You must worry. Now, sprinkle some of the water from the glass on your child.
You've heard of weird kids shows, but this one feels like it was written during a fever dream and aired by accident. This is Wizbit, a British children's show that aired in the mid-1880s. It starred a giant, talking magic hat from outer space, who spoke in riddles, warped time, and regularly broke the laws of physics, all while smiling. And yes, it was real. It aired on the BBC, and it terrified an entire generation of British kids. The main character, Wizbit, looked like a yellow cone with eyes, basically a human-sized magician's hat with a glowing face. He was sent to Earth to learn about human behavior and solve puzzles in the fictional town of Puzzleopolis, where absolutely nothing made sense. Wizbit spoke in cryptic rhymes. The townspeople were bizarre, puppet-like beings. Every episode was a disorienting swirl of color, broken logic, offbeat sound effects, and fourth wall-breaking dialogue. And looming over it all was the unsettling, hypnotic theme song, sung to the tune of The Sorcerer's Apprentice but with lyrics. Catchy? Maybe. But when paired with slow zooms, strange camera angles, and distorted laughter, it felt more like a chant, like something out of a children's cult. And then there's Paul Daniels, a real-life stage magician who played Wizbit's human sidekick. He would introduce the show with a grin that never quite met his eyes and perform tricks between scenes that blurred the line between fantasy and unease. Daniels was beloved in the UK, but in this context, his presence only made the show feel more surreal. Like Mr. Rogers trapped in David Lynch's dream diary. Some episodes involved puzzles that couldn't be solved, rules that changed without warning, and endings that left children confused, or worse, anxious. There was no clear moral, no lesson, just a growing feeling that you were being tested. Kids who watched it in the 80s still talk about it like a shared hallucination. They remember the faces, the music, the feeling of staring at Wizbit's glowing eyes and thinking, this isn't fun, this is wrong. Wizbit ran for 2 years before quietly disappearing from TV. And good luck finding full episodes today. Much of the series has become lost media with only fragments and scattered VHS clips surviving on the internet. And maybe that's for the best. Because some riddles don't need to be solved. Some shows were forgotten for a reason. And some childhood memories are best left buried in Puzzleopolis. Some shows are strange because they try something new. Peppermint Park is strange because it feels like it was never meant to be seen by anyone at all. In 1987, an obscure VHS series called Peppermint Park quietly began circulating through bargain bins and off-brand educational catalogs. It was clearly designed to mimic the success of Sesame Street, complete with puppets, songs, and alphabet lessons. But everything about it felt wrong. The puppets looked handmade, not in a charming way, but in a dead-eyed, frozen smile kind of way. Like they were stitched together in a garage by someone who had only heard of children's shows but never actually seen one. Stiff rubber mouths, mismatched eyes, weird proportions, and voices that were just a little too adult, as if someone was forcing cheerfulness through clenched teeth. And then there was the pacing. Scenes would drag on far too long, with characters repeating the same lines over and over, not for comedic effect, but like they were stuck. Songs would begin without warning, sung off-key by puppets who stared directly into the camera, unblinking. No transitions, no context. Just chaos stitched together with kid-friendly titles like Learning Numbers or The Alphabet Parade. But the most infamous part of Peppermint Park? The Ernie the Elephant segments. On paper, he was supposed to be a lovable puppet teaching kids their ABCs. But what we got instead was something that felt possessed. Ernie would laugh suddenly, not a warm, playful laugh, but something sharp and unnatural. He would ask kids to repeat after him, then stare into the camera for several seconds in total silence. Some clips cut mid-sentence. Others looped themselves in the background like someone had reused old footage or was trying to send a message. The audio quality? Glitchy. The backgrounds? Empty. And the atmosphere? More like a VHS training video for something sinister, not a child's learning tool. No one really knows who made Peppermint Park. The production company, Tri-Alpha Video, barely existed outside of these tapes, and there's no official broadcast record. It was never aired, only sold on tapes to libraries, schools, and unsuspecting parents. It didn't just fail, it disappeared. The tapes became lost media, whispered about online like a playground urban legend. Only a few episodes have resurfaced on YouTube, and they're every bit as unsettling as the rumors say. Maybe it was just a bad show with a low budget, or maybe it was something else. Something made by people who didn't understand children, or didn't care. Something that wasn't meant to entertain, but to disturb. Either way, Peppermint Park isn't just forgotten. It was buried, and for good reason.
The one important letter in momentum, the letter.
These shows were meant to educate, to inspire, to entertain. But sometimes they did something else entirely. They slipped through the cracks, broadcast to thousands of children before anyone stopped to ask, is this really for kids? And maybe that's what makes them so disturbing. Not the puppets, not the strange music, not even the faceless dolls or whispering creatures, but the fact that they actually aired, and no one thought anything was wrong, until it was too late. Thanks for watching. If you remember any of these shows, or ones even weirder, drop them in the comments. Because the strangest part of all, the truly cursed ones, are the ones we've forgotten. And somewhere, on an old VHS tape or broadcast log, they're still waiting to be remembered.